Now to pay our respects to the late Zulu monarch, King Goodwill Zwelithini Zulu. We're learning so much about the rich traditions around laying the monarch to rest. And I'm joined now by Shalo Mbatha, author and lecturer at the Department of History at the University of Zululand. Her book, Umlando kaZulu, delves into the history of the Zulus. Thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate it. It's extraordinary what's going on in KwaNongoma. It has been an intense day. We're now at this hiatus period. I wonder, I'm sure you have been watching a lot of what unfolded today. What have been your thoughts and feelings watching this incredible display of rich tradition and culture?
I'm feeling a very big sense of loss and despondency, but as well as there's also going to be hope, because with the new king gonna come in, they're obviously very modern. They were born, in a society and in a space where everything is possible. Like the South African slogan to say, there are a lot of possibilities. However, there are also very challenging times, especially with the current, pandemic that we have. But yeah, King Zwelithini's transcending is a big loss to us, because there's never going to be a good day for him to leave us.
And it's extraordinary because he is, as I understand it, a direct descendant of King Shaka, the first Zulu king, and he, of course, is the eighth. And we saw a lot of tradition, and we saw a lot of singing around him, and also a spirit of celebration for what he did contribute to his nation. I just want to play a little bit of some of the singing that we heard today, and perhaps you could just tell us a little bit more about the significance of that and why it is important. Let's take a listen. All right, so we had two clips there. There were the Zulu maidens, and then earlier, of course, we heard the singing of the AmaZulu. Talk to us about the significance of the singing during this process.
You see, whenever we have activities, especially national activities like a death, the Zulu always sing. And the songs that are sang are called amahubo. And amahubo means it's like hymns, if you like, about befitting to the occasion of His Majesty's passing. And Amabuto will sing another one, and the maidens will also sing another. However, it is also, in thinking about him, thinking about the life he's lived and where he's going, and basically it's very solemn, asking that please, wherever you're going, don't forget us. Keep us in your thoughts. We miss you. It's all along those lines. It wasn't very clear, but there were hymns, the specific, funeral or funeral rites hymns that they were singing. But they're very, very solemn. We never ever get to sing them except at this time. Can I just say something else, please, Sally? King Zwelithini is a son of King Zulu, who was born by King Mapumzana Solomon. And then who was born by King Dinizulu. King Dinizulu was actually exiled in St. Helena. And King Dinizulu was born to King Cetshwayo that defeated the British in 1879. I'm saying all this so you understand the history and the direct descendants. And King Cetshwayo is a son of King Shaka, even though he didn't take over directly after King Shaka. After King Shaka, King Dingane took over, and then King Band, and then Cetshwayo did. Now, most people think that the Zulu kingdom has got 8 kings prior, However, before King Shaka, there were other kings that were there. Remember, King Shaka made the empire. So what we have now is actually Emperor King Shaka kasenza ngakhona, because he's a king of his own, if you like, clan or kingdom, and he created an empire. So that's why after King Shaka, they were all called emperors. That includes King Emperor Zwelithini, who is in Zulu called Isilo Samabandla Onke, meaning King of Kings. I just thought I'll give you the background to that.
I mean, that is fascinating as well, because this lineage, and as you said, actually predates King Shaka. But certainly I think, you know, the warrior king and that tradition of warriors is interesting, because King Goodwill Zwelithini Zulu was known as a peacemaker and as someone who forged peace. And it's interesting that he came to the throne in 1971. Well, actually before that, in 1968, when his father died. But then he had to go into hiding, didn't he? Because there were threats on his life. I mean, this is extraordinary. But also, if you look at the time we were living in South Africa in 1971, where apartheid was gathering strength, and he's stayed with us all through this transition to democracy, and now today he leaves us while we're in the middle of a pandemic. And just in terms of his legacy and what he's come from, what he achieved, and what is next, I suppose.
You know, Sally, when you put it that way, you make me think of the Game of Thrones, you know? Because there's intrigue, there is jealousy, there's a whiff of scandal, there is trickery. And he actually went to exile in Mpumalanga. His older sister, Princess Ntlantla, had to take him and spring him to Mpumalanga, and he lived there like a commoner. And he called himself Percival Dlamini, and he worked in a normal rural shop because there was a threat on his life. But he prevailed. And remember, he was only 3 months old when apartheid came into being, you know? So he said to me when we were chatting that he's lived all his life under the burden of being a black man before he was the king of the Zulu. So his biggest legacy was to ensure that the day apartheid is over, the Zulu nation must still be intact in the way King Shaka left it and the kings before. So he also became a peacemaker because he knew what the stakes were. And he lived under very trying times, you know. That is why he saw himself as a king of the people, even beyond the Zulu. Remember, the Zulu Empire is not made up of the Zulu-speaking people as well. You understand? It's got a whole lot of people under him, you know. And we used to make a joke sometimes when we were sitting together at Kwaketo Mtandayo. He'll say, you know, we've got other Zulus that were coming from overseas asking to be members of the Zulu nation because they identify as such. And then they turn around and look at me and say, that includes you, Mbatha, because you're a Zulu in diaspora. You're from Johannesburg, you know. But I didn't know whether to smile or get mad, you know. And I said, listen, Your Majesty, you know, I ended up being born in Johannesburg because of the forced removals, you know. My great-grandparents didn't choose to live the beautiful valleys of Zululand.
Absolutely. And just in terms of, you know, he's a hard act to follow, I think, is what we're really understanding. And tragically, his 50-year-old son, Prince Letukutula Zulu, was murdered, it seems, here in Johannesburg in November last year. Now, he would have been directly in line to take over from his father. Whoever has to step up now will have an extraordinary job to do. Any inkling of who might fit that position, or is it really cloaked in secrecy until it is officially announced?
You know, I think we should take a slight moment and joke and say, if I told you, I'll have to get killed.
So what qualities? I hear you.
I didn't say if I told her I'll have to kill you. I said I might get killed, you know. So no, so let us wait for the processes. Let's get the royal family announce and let us know officially, you know. I think it's only fair to do that. Yes, because I mean, you know, as journalists, I'm sure a scoop would be wonderful.
No. I completely understand what you're saying and respect that. I suppose what I was saying is what sort of qualities would be required, particularly at this time. We're in the middle of a pandemic. Economically, times are so tough. And the late king was so passionate about sustainability, people living off the land, about developing young employment opportunities. Whoever follows in his footsteps surely will have to be equally passionate about that.
You know, the lucky thing is that the forthcoming king has been groomed for a very long time. And he's been watching His Majesty at the very close quarters. And luckily, as South African, they'll obviously know what the challenges are. And I think rather than before, because, my memory does not take me beyond apartheid, I wouldn't imagine how difficult life could have been, under colonialism or under apartheid. But the fact that they've been growing up in a democratic society for the last over 20 years, I think the burden might be slightly easy, knowing that, the new king's people, are under, they can breathe both as, human beings and as black people and as Zulu, So I think the burden will be slightly better than what His Majesty had to go through.
That's a good point, and thank you so much for chatting to us this evening. Shalo Mbatha, author and lecturer at the Department of History at the University of Zululand, and her book Umlando kaZulu looks at the history of the Zulu nation.